All right, are we on?
You're rolling.
I believe we're
All right,
alive.
let's do this. Okay, so obviously everybody knows the news now. I've got the whole KSR team here assembled that does football, and we also brought in a face that a lot of people may not know because they only have seen his name and Twitter handle for years, but he was the first person to put his name out there and say it was going to happen using a computer that seems to be in the middle of a fog storm. Jeff Drummond. So you were the first one. How did you find out?
Well, I got a call at about 9 o'clock tonight from somebody who has given me some excellent scoop over the years and who I trust completely. So when he came to me with this, I was like, I'm 99.9% sure. But there's always that 0.1 where you're like, my goodness, please let this not be the time.
Yeah, I know what that's like. I did that with Mark Stoops when he got hired. And you remember there was like 2 hours, nobody else confirmed it. And I was pacing going, it may be over for me if this doesn't happen. But
people are kind of edgy right now, if you haven't noticed.
Heck yeah, they are.
So
that's right. All right, so let's start with this. I want to kind of go through and talk about like 5 different things, but let's start with this. Your initial reaction when you realized it was going to happen. I'm just going to go in the order I can see people. So Nick, go first.
I kind of happy. not gonna lie.
For 2, Vince Marrow and Paul in this firing.
Well, some of it is the fade. I'm typically wrong about a lot of things, so some of it's the fade. But I can't believe it's actually happening because we got to a point where it was like, how do you trying to put the pieces back together felt impossible. So I'm happy that at least because basically last year was doing everything that a new coach does with the same old coach. So how do you do that again? All right, now we got a new coach. We know how this can work, a rebuild can work, and I'm glad it'll be a normal rebuild to get Kentucky football back on stable footing.
Drew, you were the most adamant of everyone. A change had to be made. What'd you think?
Honestly, didn't think Mitch had it in him. Change was needed, and it's not just because Mark Stoops hadn't been getting it done. There was just going to be no life in that program if they brought him back. I mean, a month ago, you still had some people on board. I mean, it would have been down next year, but life would have gone on. There was just no way people were going to get excited to go next year if you brought him back. I don't care if he had a whole new staff. I don't care if he had Cutter Boley and he got Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. Fans were just done with him, and that was going to be – that a message was going to be sent in the offseason. And I know we all know how expensive it was to do the buyout. They just had to come up with that because there's no way they could have run it back and had any form of excitement. We would have just been doing this next year, kicking it down the road.
Jeff?
A lot of mixed emotions initially. I kind of prepared myself for the fact that it was going to happen. But I also had this part of me that was kind of sad about the whole thing because I think Mark Stoops was probably the perfect hire at the perfect time when he came in. And I'm not sure that there are too many other coaches who could have come in 2013 and did the things that he did over the course of his career at UK. I'd been following UK forever when he got here. I didn't think these things were possible. I didn't think I'd live to see a 10-win season at Kentucky.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think I'll finish when it's my turn. Adam, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, it was time. Like for all parties involved, fans, administration, Mark Stoops, everyone needed to go their separate ways. It was time. I think we were at uncomfortable levels this season. It was going to reach an untenable, situation if you brought everyone back. I think everyone would have been forced to maybe do something they didn't want to do that would have made it even more uncomfortable. So I think from that aspect, it was just the only move for Kentucky. You just had to get this across the finish line tonight.
People are saying, Roush, you and Adam need to turn your mics down. I don't know if that means that you guys are just too forceful. It doesn't sound bad to me, but I guess
I'm so excited.
Some people. Tyler.
Yeah, it's been a big day for both of them. They're hyped. I just to echo what Drew said, happy that Mitch made this call. I know it wasn't just his call, but the entire day and the entire night, I've been worried that it wouldn't happen. I was worried that he was going to kind of kick the can down the road, and it would be easy to kick the can down the road with that big a buyout. But I don't think you can do that anymore. And I'm just really happy. It seems like there's a new direction coming. There's new change coming. So yeah, happy to look forward.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he pulled the trigger. I am. I mean, I started thinking this around 1 or 2 o'clock he was going to do it, but I think I said earlier, even on Matt and Myron, when I got asked, is it going to happen? I kind of was like, I just don't know, man. It's so easy. But I think what happened, I think at its core, and I'm fairly confident about this, I think there was finally. Okay, so earlier today I said I wasn't thrilled about the new JMI thing. I'm still not. But I will say this probably happened because the new board of 7 and board of trustees made voices other than Mitch Barnhart's and Eli Capilouto in the room. My reasoning for always thinking this was unlikely to happen is that Mitch wouldn't want to do it, Eli wouldn't want to do it, and the Crafts were not going to push it. And so if that were the case, Mitch doesn't listen to anybody else. So who in the world's, and he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't listen to social. How's he even going to know? So like part of the reason I was trying to figure out if I was going to say something on the post-game show is I know he'll hear that because people will tell him. But then I think he started hearing, I think these other voices, that board of 7 and some board of trustee people, and maybe even at least one political figure said something, and I think at that point they still left it up to Mitch, but he realized, oh wait a minute, it's not just crazy fans out there saying it. There are actually people that matter saying it, and then you ended up in this process. I've heard Mitch has played hardball. That's why I didn't put it out from 5:30 on, because I still think they don't have a deal. But I also think they realize that they're like, we can't keep these Kentucky fans up all night. They're going to go crazy. And so that's how we got here. But I still don't think they have a deal. And I don't think Mark's moving an inch. So I don't think the booster's going to pay for it. So I think they're going to have to get maybe a loan from the university, which is a whole nother set of things. So anybody have any thoughts on any of that?
I'll add a detail that Chris Lowe had. He said that Stoops said he would be willing to negotiate an agreement that will allow Kentucky to spread out the payments over a number of years.
Okay, I have not heard that. So is that that's good? If that's true, that's really
that had to happen. They weren't going to be able to do it.
They weren't going to be able to do it, and so I can tell you that by like 7 o'clock, that wasn't their position. So maybe, I'm just guessing, somebody who Stoops really cares for talked him into that. That's going to be my guess. Adam, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just think we've compared this to Cal a lot, and what we just said with you saying about the board, it sounds like the stuff at the SEC tournament where some important people, I believe it's been reported, that got upset and started voicing their frustration, and that's really kind of when Mitch was kind of like, oh, hey, now maybe I need to.
I don't think he knew. I don't think he realized it. I think he has taken the view that people who criticize him are crazy. I think he's had that view for a while, and I don't know what it is about these new voices, but somehow he realized that there were other thoughts. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm looking at my feed. I have my Twitter feed going up, and I just have players, former staff members kind of weighing in. Lynn Bowden just, tweeted out a broken heart emoji. It's going to be interesting to see the response to this from all sides. I think everybody has, a respect for what Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky, but I think we all can acknowledge that it was time. And if there's anything that has kind of nailed that down, it's been the past 2 games. I mean, 2 teams that you were used to beating throughout the Stoops era, Vanderbilt and Louisville, just whooped you. So I feel like even if there was, everybody agreed Stoops was going to come back, we wanted to pay this buyout, I feel like the change had to come.
And
Drew, I just want you for a second to talk about. I mean, you've been very
Mitch,
adamant
talk about Mitch. I'll talk about Mitch.
Yeah, you've been very adamant
Yes.
about this. Talk, for people, there are gonna be people who see this who are kind of like, oh, why did it have to happen in your mind?
I mean, the experience of Kentucky football is not good. I mean, it's not just winning games and losing games. They're like 16th out of 16 in just about every measurement I can come up with. I love volleyball. I watched the selection show. That was fun. But football and basketball are in a pretty big rut right here. And he got bailed out by Calipari just a year ago. And he had us pretty stuck here. I'm glad it's all getting worked out. But we're going to go back next year. There's going to be a new coach, and there's going to be excitement, and we're going to get in that stadium. And I expect it's going to be the same people asking for Wi-Fi, Dumas Walker, all roads lead to Lexington. Nothing's going to change because he's still operating like it's 10 years ago. I'm glad he did what it took to make the move on Mark Stoops. That needed to happen. But that's one of many things that needs to get fixed even before the spring when they're trying to generate excitement. Whoever they go get, and I hope it's a good hire. We'll see. There's some great names out there that I'm rooting for. They will naturally bring juice. Hopefully, if it's the right guy, they'll bring their own players. That'll bring excitement. But UK athletics as a whole needs to amp it up.
Yeah.
To have the longest
anybody else, let's not fire someone else tonight. Although I don't disagree with you, but let's deal with this one first. The Chris Lowe thing is huge, Nick. I didn't. He reported that, I guess, since the show started. So I didn't realize that. That's a massive thing. And that was not his position earlier. So someone,
0% zero.
Yeah. So someone got him there. Jeff, I'm going to guess that's boosters that he's friends with. That's good. That's my guess. I don't know that. I haven't talked to anyone, but that's a big deal. And I'm going to give him credit. He didn't have to do that. And I actually think that's a goodwill gesture on the way out, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the way I've read it too. I think it had to be people that were close to him, who cared about him, and they know that his legacy is important to him here.
It is, yes.
He doesn't want to leave this in the ditch when it eventually came to an end. And I think between that, passion to leave on those terms and the friends around him saying, hey, there's a way to do this to where you could still be really well liked and respected by the fan base. And I think he will be if this, plays out like it does and he allows them to, reach this settlement of a long-term buyout.
And Tyler, Mitch gets bailed out again. I mean, he gets bailed out on that contract again. Cal, it was the Arkansas boosters, and now Stoops, it looks like, and again, we'll probably find out over the next couple of days how he got there. But Stoops agreeing to that, because here was the thing. I don't think they were not going to get the money initially. And I think it was, there's some government things you have to do to get a university loan that probably was going to take some time. And so, Tyler, somebody got him there, and Stoops gets bailed out again. Or excuse me, Mitch.
We didn't even have to have an awkward sit down on BBN tonight. I mean, this is pretty incredible.
Wow.
I like all the references to the government here. I think you may know something that you're not
I don't want to get into that.
I'm very grateful that we're not having to have the ultimately uncomfortable conversation that Kentucky's not going to pay Mark Stoops' buyout, because they have found a solution, and thank goodness. I think everyone is grateful for that. But go ahead.
Adam, I just think there were more people who felt the way Frank Franklin did.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of people like in the BBN that felt that way, but I think there were more people in positions that are a little higher than people thought. And some of them expressed their voice Saturday night,
Some of them are texting me right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it took people by surprise.
To me, Matt, I think some of the diehards and some of the people that follow recruiting day to day, people that are on our message board, good fans, like that are into it and support the program, they've been very vocal about this trending the wrong way, really since 23. And I think last year was the final straw for those folks. But I think more the Gen Pop fans wanted Stoops to succeed.
The radio show fans turned on him this year.
They wanted him to succeed, and I think the Tennessee game to me was almost the final straw. I think beating Florida like he did, I think got some people back. But that Tennessee game was kind of after the Texas game where you mess it up on the goal to goal, and that was the straw to me that broke the camel's back at that point. And I don't think there was really any coming back from that. Even
I disagree with you. I don't know how many of y'all think this. I think if he doesn't get blown out by Vandy and Louisville, he has a job.
I agree with that. But I think going into next year, the fan base, I don't know you were getting them back.
I don't know. Drew, Jeff, then you two, and Nick.
I think that's very clear by how long it took them to do anything today.
What'd you say?
I think that's very clear because it's obvious there was no plan for this. The fact that it's 10:30 and we're just now having this conversation. A competent AD would have had a plan 2 months ago of what he would have done today if we got to this point. But Mitch woke up today, probably went and sang his church songs and went home and was like, all right, let's figure this out.
Jeez, wow. Jeff, do you think
also,
if we lost that game yesterday? What?
I'm getting roasted for my hairline, so look what I brought back.
Yeah, you have a great hairline. Don't let them listen to you. Jeff, do you think if we lost that game yesterday, 28-24, Mark Stoops is still the coach?
Not if it was paired with the Vandy blowout.
Okay, let's say they were both 28-24.
Yes, I think there's a pretty good chance he'd be back.
I do too.
Can I would like to just note that the canary in the coal mine is one of the loudest canaries, and Vince Merrill leaving in June last year. I mean, and it wasn't just like something that happened overnight. I mentioned it on the board back in this time a year ago that was a possibility, and they quelled it off for a while, but like, Vince saw the writing on the wall. I mean, he did. And he was Stoops' longest ally. He was the most outspoken proponent of the program. When you lose that guy, I mean, it's kind of hard to be able to put the holes, the gum over the holes in the dam,
I'm going to give the 30-second timeline of how I think he fell apart, and then Tyler will rotate around. You all add anything to it you want. I think things have been difficult for Mark for about 2 or 3 years, just in general. He's just had a difficult time. I think it started to slip. There became kind of an old boy network, like with with Cal, where it was the same people around him, nothing new, hiring his brother. Like, it's just the same people, right? Things start to slip. He lost the locker room last year, lost it. He, instead of like trying to bring in new blood, kind of went to the same old stuff. Especially Eddie Grant, etc. Vince didn't like that. He kind of pushed Vince to the side. Eddie was his guy, Eddie and Brad White. He then gets insulated. They kind of think they turn it around this year, and then it just doesn't work. And they get more and more desperate, and things fall apart. And like with Cal, he gets more and more isolated. The only difference was Stoops wasn't an asshole like Cal was in his last year or two to people in the program. Go around, start with you, Tyler. Anything you would add to that sequence?
So over the offseason, 55 newcomers via recruiting or transfer portal. Transfer portal evaluation, not there. I mean, it was in some ways, it wasn't in others. My only other point, I know Drew will hit on this too. Marketing and messaging has just been non-existent for the past year and a half, probably 2 years. They have just kind of like stuffed everything under the couch, pretended there wasn't a football program to promote. It's impossible to get forward momentum when you do that. So those are my 2 things. Adam, I know you'll have a lot to say about the transfer portal.
I go back even the Cohen just dipsy-do multiple times really.
And Stoops did not know. I can tell you for a fact. I'll just tell you now that this is over. 10 minutes before Cohen took the job at Jacksonville, at Tampa, I got a call from Stoops yelling at me for saying Cohen was thinking about leaving. He had no idea he was going to go. None. Like, none. Go ahead.
He had been interviewing for all those jobs and acted like he was surprised.
And Stoops, like,
come on.
And by the way, Cohen lied to Stoops. Cohen said he hadn't interviewed with there, and he had. But anyway, go ahead, Adam.
Well, we could tell some Liam Cohen stories if we wanted to.
Yeah, I got time.
But I think that they just had both times. It just really set them back. It set them back twice, really. And then I think that had not everything, but it had a decent amount to do with them losing the locker room in 2024. And then I think they tried to do this portal thing and rebuild it. And I don't think they had the pieces in place and how to build a roster I don't think they did a great job with how they kind of did it. They misevaluated guys. I think they kind of got saved by a high school recruiting class. And so that's how I thought he lost it. And then like the JUCO plan that they were presenting here in the last few weeks was just
that wasn't gonna work.
It was a disaster. Like that is like, what are we doing? That had the potential to set the program up for, I think, long-term problems for the next coach if you went down that road a year or two. And so, but I go back to the Cohen stuff. I think that was really the kind of the two big body blows to the Stoops era was losing
the
him.
Cohen. But we could do our own podcast on the Cohen thing. I remember where I was in New York City when Liam Cohen said, "You're crazy if you think that I'm taking the Tampa job," and the Tampa reporter, like an hour later, said he was coming. Jeff, go ahead.
Can I just piggyback off that before Jeff?
Your turn, Nick. Let's let Jeff real quick.
I won't steal from you, Nick, because Tyler and Adam threw out some great examples. But for me, I think especially in the fans' eyes, it had to do a lot with some little things that never changed. The time management, the end of second quarters. I mean, even in the good years, that was going wrong. And I think it just really stuck with a lot of fans towards the end of this and said, I don't see a whole lot of hope for things changing.
True.
That's a good point about some of the common mistakes. And, he had 12 football games this season. I can count of at least 3 where when the broadcast went to halftime, people were laughing at Kentucky football. Yeah. It just happened with Jimbo, who he knows very well. It happened on ABC in the Ole Miss game, and there was one, maybe South Carolina,
Georgia.
Where Georgia. They literally go to the halftime crew, and they're firing off jokes about Kentucky football. This isn't some new coach. It was year 13. We have the longest tenured AD and the longest tenured coach, or did have. And we're talking about basic things that haven't been fixed or corrected in over a decade.
Nick, now go over what you were going to say and then keep going.
I wrote all about it too. It's like a bunch of words. But Stoops kind of had 2022 teed up to leave. Similar to this year, all the coaches were on expired deals. Jim Harbaugh's the favorite to take the Vikings job. And then something happens when he goes on that visit. They hire Kevin O'Connell, who leaves the Rams, and that's when McVay calls Liam. I think they just had everything teed up for 22, and Stoops was ready to leave after then. That would have been year 11, right? I think.
Year 10.
11, 10, whatever. Senior year.
Year 10,
yeah. You had Chris Rodriguez's senior year. Like, everything was kind of teed up to have success. You had a great schedule. You're 7th in the country, go down to Ole Miss, and then it goes to hell in a handbasket there. And then shortly after that, that's the biggest thing he missed on fans was the pony up thing. Like that's
huge. That's huge. I'm glad you said that. That's huge.
That was the first time that this millionaire didn't feel like he was one of us. Right? That's what people love the Youngstown stuff. Well, then it got turned on its head. It's like, are you Youngstown tough, or is the millionaire crying from the yacht? So I thought that, and then the A&M stuff just a few months later, like that was just a lot of people were done with him after that.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. I'm glad you said that. Well, first of all, go back even the football, basketball school divide.
Oh, God,
right?
Yeah.
Because while most people, I think, sided with him on that, there were some that didn't, and then they decided they hated him. Like, didn't just dislike him, hated him. So the same way that some fans decided they hated Cal, that ended up being a lose-lose for both those guys. They both came out worse from that fight. And I think that was big. And then the pony up was huge because it also showed that he was starting, just like Cal, to look at the fans as the enemy instead of, which is always stupid. And then I think you're exactly right with the A&M thing. The A&M thing was bad. Jeff, I was with Vince Marrow as it was going down, and his staff did not know what was going on. And he called his entire staff and said, "Who's ready to go to A&M?" And they all were like, "Not me." And then he was really surprised, and it fell apart.
Yeah, I'd heard those stories before, and one of them, his defensive coordinator, who was highly sought after at that time, said, "No, I'm not going to Texas A&M." Like it around Lexington quite a bit. So
nobody was going. Nobody was going, and I think that shocked him.
The other part with the pony up stuff is, like Stoops is Mr. Recruit and Develop, and he just sucked at NIL in the transfer portal. And some of that is probably on his boss, right, for being behind in NIL at Kentucky. But the other part too is, I mean, a big reason why he lost the locker room last year is because he invested in the wrong players.
But they were good at it at first. I mean, the first couple years, they actually were pretty good with Levis and what was the guy from Ole Miss, the linebacker?
Jarquez Jones.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, they actually did all right at the beginning, but then it
know.
got bad.
And then,
But they were only taking 5 guys then.
Yeah.
Then it became 12 to 15 and then 25 this offseason, which I think this year they did a better job, I think, implementing those guys into the culture. And I don't think they had a bad culture this year. But last year's team was, on paper, was a really talented football team. Was one of their more talented teams they've had, and they just couldn't figure out how to balance that. And it was clear that there was a divide between, I think, the high school players from high school recruiting and the portal players on the team last year. And it ended up being poor leadership, and they just we talked about teams quitting, but that team absolutely, I mean, it quit as hard as any teams quit here their last half of the season, and it was a disaster. And then it kind of created a hole that was insurmountable to get out of.
Drew, I think you made a really good point about how you got blown out because like we didn't used to get, like Mark, that was the thing about him, we were always competitive and then we weren't. Jeff, you talked to a lot of older fans. That's like, you kind of have a connection to fans that maybe most, like you and Ryan Lemon are the two people that kind of talk to that part of the fan base. Tell me how their reactions changed about Stoops over the last couple years.
Well, it started out with a lot of them, frustration and a little bit of anger here and there. Not quite as angry as the younger crowd. I think it was always, on social media and that type of thing, that anger seems to come through a lot louder with them. But it turned this past season to, the thing we talk about being worse than that. And that was apathy and no hope moving forward.
All right, I'm going to go Tyler, then Drew, and then we'll talk to the nerds of Adam and Nick for a second. Tyler, Drew, I decide you get to hire the coach. What's your first inclination?
Will Stein's a great name, like forward thinking, exciting, offensive minded, Kentucky connections. Brian Hartline, also exciting. But if I had to go with one now, I go Will Stein.
Will Stein. Drew.
Yeah, I kind of joined the consensus that those two are on a tier by themselves. I know there are a lot of other names being thrown around. I know earlier when you had Justin Rowland and you did that other YouTube, he named.
I don't know what he was talking about, Brian.
Or was that Triple H? I thought that was Triple H you had on there for a little while. I didn't agree with some of those, but Stein and Hartline are on a tier by themselves. I lean Stein, and it's more just he grew up a fan. He's down the road. But I will say Hartline is one of the hottest names in the sport. If he can bring some Ohio State talent because they love him there, I would lean him. But I just don't know what receivers would follow him. But if he can bring some Buckeyes with him, he's a lot more proven. But I would be absolutely thrilled with either one of those two.
I'll add one thing. I'll add one thing. Can we get a general manager?
Well,
yeah, I think that's going to happen.
Both football and basketball.
That's going to happen. That's going to happen.
The thing with Hartline.
Wait a minute, before we get to, I want you two to break these guys down for just a second. But Louisville fans really don't want us to get Will Stein.
No.
All right,
even better reason to get
you
him.
two are way too smart about this stuff. So I'm going to limit you both to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people who don't follow this, they don't know anything about Will Stein and Brian Hartline except their names. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give Nick, you Will Stein, Adam, you Brian Hartline. Tell people what they need to know, since I do think those are two of probably the 3 or 4 biggest candidates. Nick.
So as Tyler alluded to, Stein played at Louisville, but his dad is a former Cat. I believe he's still a season ticket holder. There was some interest gauged early on. I forget his exact first coaching job, but UTSA, the Roadrunners, when they had their first big pop, when they started playing at the Alamo Dome, he was the guy who was calling the shots on the offense for UTSA. Jeff Traylor, the head coach, became this big coaching commodity. Well, since Stein's left, he's not as popular anymore because they aren't scoring as many points. The offense isn't as crazy. Stein's been in Oregon now for 2.5, 3 years now.
Third year.
he recruited the guy, Matt Ponatoski, who is committed to Kentucky. He tried to get him in Oregon. So,
But like, what kind of offense?
Spread.
It's a mix of pro style and spread. He's had a top 10 offense every year at Oregon, Matt, with a different quarterback. 3 different quarterbacks he's went out and had to adjust his offense to. It's been a top 10 offense. I would say just it's more modern than kind of what Kentucky has kind of run. And they've been able to balance it, good run game, explosive pass game. And everyone that talks to him comes away really, really impressed. And
all right, so Brian Hartline.
Brian Hartline, one of the best recruiters in college football. He's known as getting the best guys at receiver. He became a receiver coach right when he retired. Ryan Day has promoted him twice, the offensive coordinator. Last time Day called the plays. This year, Hartline's calling the plays. Undefeated. Ohio State. Julian saying their quarterback might win, or it's in the running for the Heisman Trophy. Jeremiah Smith, a guy he recruited, is maybe the best player in college football. He's known as an ace recruiter. He's showing he has some play calling chops this year. And I think for him, Ohio State has the best GM front office situation in college athletics. So if you bring him in, he knows how to work with a structure like that, which moving forward, I think is really important. From a player acquisition, talent acquisition, recruiting, ceiling, he's the highest of any candidate Kentucky has. And he can probably build the best staff. Where with Stein, that is a big question mark for him moving into this role.
Jeff, you're kind of connected with some of the folks who are involved in the donor decision-making class. I believe Mitch Barnhart will not be the AD next season. Do you agree with that?
I've kind of been getting that feeling, just a gut feeling that does not come from anyone telling me that.
Okay.
At all. But based on some of the things you've heard, I've heard you talk about it, and just some of the things I've noticed, I think we're getting to that point, whether it's at the end of this athletics year or the next.
So that gets to this point, which, Jeff, I'll let you go to first. Who makes this decision? Who's deciding who this coach is? I mean, I know it's Mitch, but like, I don't think anybody's given him the ability to do whatever he wants. And even last time when he hired Stoops, he had a committee. So, but they don't have time for that. Like they got to get somebody like real quick. Who's it going to be?
I think it may not be a committee, but I think it'll be like a small gang, maybe 2 or 3 people putting their heads together on the best way to go. And now I've heard from the same source that I had earlier tonight that Stein has been high on their list contingency plan for a long time.
I think that's true. I think I would actually say Mitch Barnhart's little top 5 list that I've always talked about how he always has. I think Will Stein was in the top 2 or 3 on that. Drew, do you trust Mitch Barnhart to make the hire? You have been a big fan.
Come on. What are we doing? I still can't believe he gets $800,000 when he retires, because that just tells me that we're just going to get Mitch Barnhart 2.0. So he'll probably make the decision with whoever he already knows he's handing it off to. I will say I did not expect he'd even get this far, so I have to commend him that he at least ripped the Band-Aid off and figured this out. A little behind schedule in my eyes, but at least he did it. And as you all have mentioned, Stein has a contingency plan. He's number 1 on my list. If Mitch were to make that happen, I would have to pat him on the back for that. But that's about the extent of my patting on the back there.
All right, 9 minutes. Let's go to questions from the forum, because we've got a really good diverse group of people here in terms of what they know about UK sports and who they're connected to and all that to ask questions. So Stephen, pop any of them up here. Will the new coach have the power to bring their own staff, Eddie Grand GM type of role? Adam, I think pretty much every coach is given the power to do their own staff. I would think that would be the case here too.
On-field coaches, yes. What's going to be interesting to see is like, how does UK admin want to set up this GM structure? Because there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. And they are UK admin, Tyler. My biggest criticism is it's the most insular, no change group of people in 20 years, right? Same faces we've been seeing forever. This is going to be someone that's got to be outside of that structure. And I do wonder, will they do that? I think that's a fair question. That's
a bigger question than we have than just Mark Stoops leaving. I think that's That's going to be big, but other schools are doing it. Vanderbilt did it. Vanderbilt's doing it. They revamped the whole athletic department. Kentucky has to be forward thinking when they make this hire, and it goes beyond the football program. So please, I
I'm
love
gonna
all
guess
of
a
them.
Brian Hartline or Will Stein is going to demand that if he's going to come.
I would think so. And when talking about Brian Hartline, we have to mention Mike Hartline, who's
Yeah, of
currently on UK staff working with Cutter Boley. I don't know if that connection would mean a ton, but it is worth noting.
In Hartline too, he hasn't been the play like Will Stein. His reputation is as a play caller. Part of Hartline's, the big part is recruiting, obviously, but the other part is they kind of have almost been grooming him to replace Ryan Day. Like if things went wrong last year, that was kind of how, from like an organizational standpoint, kind of the way they were leaning there.
Which is not a bad thing. If they are thinking that he's an ascending coach that could be the head football coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, we'll let him come on down here to Lexington,
And then
Kentucky,
if he's good
win
enough
some
to go
football
there,
games, and then he can go to Ohio State.
Then we had a lot of success. I agree. All right, what's next?
I do think part of the equation is important there. With Stein, I think the thinking is you may have a guy who could be here for a while.
That's true.
If
And
he does well.
Mitch values that. Mitch values that. Whether he should or not, it's a different question, but he does. Thoughts on Cutter moving forward, staying or going? Who amongst you knows the Cutter people the best? It's not me.
Probably
Nick, go.
Yeah. I think that they were preparing for this possibility, and there was even a time this year where I thought he was only leaving if Stoops wasn't leaving. So, I think Cutter's probably staying here, and this might have actually done more to keep him here than Stoops returning.
And here's the thing with Cutter, I think this hire you don't want to seclude candidates off, but QB development, play calling is very, very important. Those are two boxes I think you have to check. And I think for Cutter Boley, I think the NIL package Kentucky is going to present him is going to be better than he's going to get elsewhere.
I agree.
And then you combine that with what's probably going to be an offensive-minded coach with a QB development background. I think those two things, it's a safe bet that Cutter Boley is week one starting quarterback at Kentucky next year.
I also want to say this. You're going to see a lot of national media criticize Kentucky for this move. And Jeff, I think they're idiots. Like they're going to sit there and go, what do you want to do at Kentucky? Like they don't know. One of the things I've learned being a national media person myself, I'm asked to talk about programs, and y'all that listen to me know I don't know anything. They don't know. So they're going to say all this, but they're not here. Like they're not here on a day-to-day basis. And Jeff, they don't know how it is. So like I expect criticism, but no offense, I don't care, to be honest.
There will be some for sure, and they'll be quick to point out the 10-win seasons, the 8 bowl trips in 9 seasons, which shouldn't be glossed over. That's something I didn't think I'd see at Kentucky either. But an objective person who's been around here, paying attention for the last 4 years can say that there's been a decline, and things have dropped off a lot from where those other stats were.
Let's do 3 more, and then we'll let everybody go to bed because we got all day tomorrow to do this too. What's next? Pick well, Stephen. Could we have gotten Sumrall? Love it, Drew. What do you think?
Yes, we could have.
Over Florida?
Whether people like to admit it or not, there is back channeling going on, and Sumrall probably had talks with Auburn and Florida a long time ago, and I doubt we had even the smallest, hey, are you interested before today.
So you think we would have picked Kentucky over Florida?
I think we would have had a good shot. I think we would have had a great shot.
Well,
but I mean, as I said,
that could be on Mitch. If he ends up going to Florida and being successful, and whoever we hire isn't.
Sumrall knows those expectations at Florida. Sumrall just saw what they did to Billy Napier, who kind of came from the same path. Yeah. He probably saw the reaction online the last 24 hours. This is home. Lexington's a great place to live with lower expectations. Former player, he's coached here. We all know the whole drill. I don't know that we would have won in the end, but I know that waiting until 10:30 p.m. on Sunday night certainly isn't going to get him.
I agree. How many people think that he would have picked Kentucky over Florida?
I'll say it.
I don't think so. I I would like to think so, but I think Florida is giving him what, $7.5 million a year, plus
We would give
whatever
him that.
resources he wants for NIL. I just don't think that Kentucky was set up and ready enough to make that happen. And I don't fault John for that at all. Like, he's going to have a cushy spot at Florida, and Florida wanted him and Florida went after him. So good for him. But it really did hurt my heart when I saw that today, because it's like, oh, because there was this glimmer of hope when all this stuff started yesterday. It was like, oh, we could still get Summerall. He hasn't gone to Auburn. He hasn't gone here. He hasn't gone there. And I don't blame him. It's going to be tough to face him next year.
Also, to the national media, we had 10,000 people watching live on our
12.
afternoon thing. I don't know what we have now, but it's 11 o'clock at night.
It's 12 right now.
And it's 12,000 people. So people who don't think Kentucky fans care, or they only care about basketball, those people don't know. Again, think about all the names I mispronounce of coaches across the country, and they put me on. So that should tell you how much they know about Kentucky. What's next?
I want to add one thing about the national media. I've said for years that this is much harder than basketball because we don't have a moment where you just know. Like, you don't get an Oakland or a St. Peter's. There's not a tournament.
True.
You don't get a 16 seed. You play your 3 cupcakes. You play the SEC, and you get bowl games. So you never really have it's obvious. Well, he made it pretty damn obvious on Saturday. Yeah. I've always said that opportunity would never come, but losing 41-0 to Louisville, that was your St. Peter's and Oakland's, and I hope the national media recognizes just how bad.
That's why I don't think it happens, Jeff, without those 2 games, for that exact reason Drew just talked about.
Yeah, it was really hammered through on Saturday, and a few of those shots of him on the sidelines made me think too. I was like, I think he knows.
And his attitude didn't help. That 0.0%, I was standing with Mitch Barnhart the moment Billy Gillespie said, I was not hired to be an ambassador or whatever, or, and I heard with my ears Mitch Barnhart say to no one in particular, well, that's it, and walks out. And I was like, well, I guess that's it. That's sort of like, he doesn't like comments like that. So I got to think that didn't rub him right. What's next? How quick can a new coach turn us around? Great question. Adam, you go first on that.
Very, very quickly. Now, there are situations where if you have a massive roster situation where you have to turn over 50 players, it can make it difficult. But Kentucky kind of did that last year. So I think they're going to have a chance to keep these guys in place this year. And if you hit on the quarterback and the play caller, and maybe the schedule is a little lighter than projected, you can have a good season.
Yeah.
Well, if you catch a team right, and a couple teams have down years, and
you do have Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, and Texas A&M next year, and Tennessee.
Yeah, we're probably not going to find Cignetti, but he just took his whole James Madison team to Indiana that first year and had a good season. So if you have a candidate that can bring a successful team with him, that helps.
You get 1 year, but year 2 in this new era, it's like, okay, it's time to go.
I agree. Year 2.
The one thing that's noteworthy, our guys at Rivals had a quote from Ponatoski that the star quarterback in the high school class, he said he was never going to sign on Wednesday because he's playing baseball. He's not enrolling early. But the high school matters less. It's more about the portal with new coaches. Well, the portal doesn't open until January 2nd now. So it's not like Kentucky has to make a hire in 2 days. You have a week to get this figured out at least before you start working back channels to build.
Yeah, they only had 12 high school commitments or whatever anyway. So
13 high school commits, 1 JUCO.
Yeah. All right. Let's do one more. As we wait for Steven's magical question picker. I keep waiting. Come on, Steven.
Oh, here we go. He combined questions.
Okay, gotcha. Well, what is it? There we go. Combining questions. What is the chance Steiner Heartline turn us down? And if they do, what is the next tier? All right, I think I'm fairly confident. I want to save the next tier for Adam and Nick. Tyler, I'm fairly confident one of those guys would say yes. Do you agree?
If they've already vetted Stein and kind of reached out to him in back channels, I would think that he's more likely than not to say yes. I mean, not seeing what they're offering him, but Heartline too has been waiting for this opportunity. I would think one of the two would say yes, depending on the offer.
Drew?
I would think so. I mean, I know we're down. This is a good job. I will be, if they're truly interested in those two, I would be surprised, Stein especially, if you couldn't end up with him.
Jeff?
Not to scare people too much, but 2 words or 2 names, Hurley and Drew. From
No.
Yeah, but those were 2 guys who had played and won national championships. I don't think this
And
is exactly
they're head coaches. These are assistants.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, don't you think that's a little different?
But I think maybe we got fooled a little bit into the power of Kentucky basketball. Surely one of those 2 is going to take this opportunity. Yeah. So I've learned you better have a few more names, although we all agree that those are 2 good places to start.
I never thought Hurley would. I did think Drew might, but I never thought Hurley would. All right, Nick, Adam, great question about, let's just assume it's not those guys, and then let's assume it's not Dan Mullen, because I think that is a name that whether people – look at that cat on Jeff's head. That is
is that a bad omen? It's a black
well, first
cat.
of all, do you all think Dan Mullen will be a candidate? And then give us 1 or 2 other names besides Will Stein and Hartline. Nick.
I think Mullen would be a candidate because of the SEC experience. He got some time away. Now he's doing well at UNLV. All of that comes down to, would Scott Strickland tell Mitch, they're like, okay, this guy's good to work with. And I think that would play a significant role in it. I mentioned earlier on the earlier show, Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator at Alabama, who's been a head coach at South Alabama previously, worked with DeBoer at Indiana. I think he'd be in the mix. And then I'll save the other ones for Luckett because I know he's got them fired up, ready to roll.
I want to say this first. With both Hartline and Stein, those are teams in the playoff. If you make the Final Four, you're playing after the day the portal starts. So if you're Mitch and you're UK, that's something you really have to think hard about. Ohio State will be there. Oregon's a little, we'll see, but they could definitely get there. And how you manage that is something you have to take into consideration.
But people have done that before. I mean, that's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's still a tricky.
Yeah,
it's tricky. And so
other names.
And then the other name I would say is Bob Chesney, James Madison. He's kind of been in the mix for Penn State. We don't really know what's going on there. He's at the mix at UCLA. He's been like a D3 coach, D2 coach, FCS coach, and now he's been good at James Madison. He's one I would watch. Jared Parker is a Kentucky alum. Troy's playing for a Sun Belt title this weekend. He's yet another Kentucky guy who went to Troy. He's having success. He would be, to me, like the Mark Pope in this situation. Like if you did miss on a couple candidates, Jared Parker's not going to say no.
Hey, Jeff, when they hired Mark Stoops, it was Dwayne Peavy, Mitch Barnhart, and he brought one outside person, and that was Tim Couch. You think it would be Jacob Tamme this time?
That's probably a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, I would guess, if I were to guess the committee, it would be Mitch Barnhart, Mark Hill, and Jacob Tamme. And that's just a complete and total guess. But
fortunately, right now they have a lot more options in that regard than they did, in December 2012.
Yeah, but Tammy's on that board. He's on that board, and I have to think that he's. By the way, I expect Brad White to become the defensive coordinator at Florida for whatever it's worth. I think that probably happens tomorrow, and probably would have happened whether this happened or not. Well, guys, any last words from anybody?
I just want to echo what Jeff said earlier because, man, it's been hell. I was just an intern when I started doing this when the Stoops thing first started happening, and I didn't think I would be watching Josh Allen win College Defensive Player of the Year, seeing a walk-off win at Missouri, watching the Bowden Ball experience. I mean, he took a freaking receiver and made him quarterback, and they just ran all over the SEC. Like, what Mark Stoops did was awesome. And as Jeff said, he was the right man at the right time for the job. But the job changed, and he spent the whole last year complaining about it. And not necessarily 25, but all 24, he complained about it. It's clear that it wasn't going to work out. They gave it another go. It didn't work out. It's time to move on. Thanks for everything, Stoops.
Anybody else?
I would say this is going to move very quickly because it has to. So just get ready. It's going to be a turbo search. And so
Frank, I feel like you have to say something.
Do you want me to be Frank or be Drew? Because I
I
am.
want you to be whatever you are.
Well, people have enjoyed Frank lately, but I don't love that. I mean, the Stoops time ended, but I do feel bad that it ends this way because I thoroughly enjoyed the Stoops era, as many people did. It has not worked lately. As Nick just said, the sport has completely changed, and he was better off than it was. But, I have my moments here with my rants, but I do think fondly of Mark Stoops overall and how it went. Like I'm not just like, yeah, get him out of here, fire Stoops, hate him. That no part of me feels that way. Stoops gave it a great run here. People joke about the statue. I still think we should have something recognize him when that day comes. I mean, those 10-win seasons were incredible. So it is. I am getting a little fired up here and there, and I was 100% on the change, but it's not just pure joy. I really loved what Stoops did in his time here up until the very end.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Drew had to say there. And I think the timing of when he came in and from his first press conference, he came in and said, we are going to be great on the offensive line and defensive line. And I said, sold. I'll take it right now. And I think that's exactly what Kentucky needed at that time. It wasn't the most popular hire at the time. But I love the way he pitched that Kentucky could compete in the trenches. Kentucky could go compete in recruiting battles with bigger schools. And he deserves a lot of credit for what they did during his time here.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this more extensively tomorrow, but because I do think he deserves a lot of kudos. I mean, he won here at a level that I didn't think anybody could win here. He changed the idea of Kentucky as like a laughable football destination to where he leaves here, and this is a place where we can actually talk about getting good coaches and get one. And he was a big part of that. He sort of changed the perception. He brought money into the program. Drew and I were at, I don't know if we've said it before, but Drew and I sat at the dinner where he sold Joe Kraft on becoming a donor to UK. It was me, Joe Kraft, Mark Stoops, and Drew. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And I watched him do it, and it was brilliant. It really was. It was brilliant. And he created a friendship there that I think lasted for 12 years and that basically created a football program. And I watched it happen. And I fell for the guy, and I still think he's a really good man. You know, he's had difficulties, but like we're all human. We all make mistakes, and he provided like a lot of joy. And I hate that it happened like this, but at the same time, it did. And he should be in the Ring of Honor one day, and he will be. And he should come back one day, and the stadium should go crazy, and it will. And I think this is a good way for it to end, to where somebody said legacy. It is very important to him to be like loved and to be a part of a legacy. And this was the way it could happen. And so while I'm sad about it, I'm glad it happened like this, because I do think there's still a way to make him get the flowers he does deserve. So with that, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we're going to invest with this new partnership in getting you a new camera, because that's a bad camera.
And his cat.
Yeah, shout out to
I'm
your
not
cat.
going to get you a new cat. You can keep your cat.
I would just add one thing, Matt, because I think it's important to note that Stoops has affection for this fan base. And you could hear it as recently as the win over Florida. He really does love the Kentucky fan base. And I think that one thing that maybe separates this separation from the one with Calipari is Calipari cared about Kentucky fans, sure, but you could really feel it with Mark Stoops whenever he talks about this fan base. So I do think that's something important to keep in mind as we're going through the next coming days.
Well, all right. Thank you, guys. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. KSR. What time are y'all doing the football podcast?
2.
Is that live?
2:30. Yeah.
So that'll be live on YouTube. KSR is on its regular stuff. See you later. All right. Thank you, guys.